Brodes Media.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? Before we get into all of the comments made by Dave Dombrowski and the current state of the Phillies as the season ended, thank you guys so much for clicking on this. If you're new to the channel, smash that subscribe button. Hit the thumbs up button as well. I greatly appreciate it. Over on Twitter, at Brodes81, that is my personal Twitter account. Hit the follow button there. And then BrodesMedia.com. I've been writing a lot more content for the website. It's always fun. You can check it out there. I hope you enjoy it. And with that being said, enjoy the show. What is going on, everyone? Welcome on into Sports Talk with Brodes. Dave Dombrowski spoke to the media today, and right from the jump, I want to say this. It felt as if he was a smart baseball mind. It felt as if he had a game plan. It felt as if, okay, I analyzed what this team was. I've seen where this franchise is at, and it's now time to add my flavor to the mix. Now it's time for the cause and the effect, right? The effect side of things. Why is Dave Dombrowski here? Because Matt Klentak sucked so much, and he was an absolute disgrace. That's now the cause and the effect of why Dave Dombrowski's here, and it's his opportunity to pounce and to make major changes to the philosophy and the growth of where the Phillies are. And it begins with all the inside internal moves. Bringing in Mattingly to now oversee some of the issues that occurred in your farm system for decades now. Okay, they fired Joe Dillon. Now, I'm not one to say boo Joe Dillon or this team is such an embarrassment due to their hitting coach. I think it's more of they don't have enough talent and they had to play Ronald Torreyes, Freddie Galvis, Travis Jankowski, Luke Williams, Nick Maton, Brad Miller, and the list goes on and on and on. Matt Vierling. These players saw too much time. That was more of the problem with the inconsistent offense, and JT Realmuto struggling himself and not having a pure leadoff guy. I mean, really, I can name you 7,000 reasons why this team finished 82-80 that isn't Joe Dillon. And I heard Jim Salisbury talk about this, and he was discussing the move and thought it was a little, I mean, come on now. I don't know, a little premature on the whole Joe Dillon front. But then he also touched on the fact that this team wants to get better in an area of maybe game planning for pitchers more. Maybe, just maybe, Joe Dillon was stressing just what they need to work on as individuals and let's focus on the matchups. What does this pitcher do well? And maybe there's a correlation between that and hearing Jim Salisbury talk about that. Now, I don't know if that's a Joe Dillon problem or if that's more of just the Phillies and the way that they approach baseball problem. But anyway, I digress. There's been how many pitchers that had a 7+ ERA where this offense looked lost and they didn't know what they were looking for and they looked confused and they got overwhelmed in the dish against pitchers with literally 6+ ERA, 7+ ERA. Maybe there's a correlation. Then, of course, with the defense, miserable, abysmal. Well, looking in another direction in that department as well. So Dave Dombrowski was pretty open, and honestly, there were some guys he said some major comments about, Didi Gregorius specifically. If I'm Didi, I'm not feeling very good, whether internally or externally, we'll be finding the shortstop position. And there was a huge praise heading in the direction of Bryson Stott, and they look at him as a shortstop. They look at Alec Bowman as a third baseman. We've already talked about what needs to change. He will not be playing winter ball. He'll be at Clearwater. He will be focusing on the details that we already talked about. Alec Bowman is bought into working on the offensive side and defensive side, but I love the buy-in factor. I don't know if the answers will be there. I mean, I don't know if this is going to actually complete him and be the difference in succeeding or not, but this is the best opportunity if you're going to. Yes, the buy-in factor by Alec Bowman. And I thought it was funny because he's not wrong, but Dave Dombrowski also mentioned that if he starts hitting, we're not even talking about the defense as much. We don't need him to be a gold glove player over at third. But we talked about the hypotheticals of him playing left field or them moving him to first base. It does seem as if Alec Bowman, third base, that's on their mind. How do we fix him? How do we get him to become a better player? Working on the agility. Sometimes someone's just 6'5", lanky. It doesn't make a lot of sense for him. He's not able to. The ability's not there to be shifty, to be quick, to get down to the ball at a high enough clip. But if he's hitting well enough, do you talk about the issues? Rhys Hoskins, that kind of stopped the whole defensive problem. Why? Well, maybe because Alec Bowman was the worst we've ever seen, so it made it seem as if Rhys Hoskins was not as much of an issue, even though he still was, or because he showed the power. He was hitting the doubles. He was smoking the baseball in the gap, and he was crucial with some protection behind Bryce Harper. Maybe that's why. So will those two outweigh their negatives? And will that be enough for this team to be solid next year? See, here's my problem. Matt Klentak was that much of an issue. He sucked that much. You're now seeing how much he set this franchise back. Dave Dombrowski, he's solid. He's a smart individual. He's a baseball guy through and through. You can tell he's got a grasp on this. We got to get stronger with our farm system. We're now going to approach that as an organization. I'm the president of baseball ops. We're going to put the pieces in the right puzzle. We did not before. The philosophy of what was happening in the minor leagues, it was all flawed. Going back to that Jim Salisbury piece that I was listening to, he's discussing how there's so many old school guys and there's so many new school guys, and they're clashing and they're bashing down there in AA, AAA, single A within the system. And then you hear the numbers. I was going to jot them down and go back and lay it all out there for you, but it made me vomit so much. It made me sick to such a horrendous degree that I didn't want to do that. And I would hope that you guys would say, Brodes, I don't want you to do that either. So I'll just give you it more from like a broad perspective. They're not good offensively or defensively in the rankings in majority of these minor leagues. Well, they're last in with their pitchers throwing walks. They're last in batting average. They're last in OPS. Ew, it's garbage. Yeah, it's bad. It's awful. There was somebody in Coffee with Brodes the other day that was talking in the chat. And I love everybody who wakes up Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. to come kick it here on YouTube in the live stream, drinking their coffee with me. I mean, it's great. It puts a big smile on my face. But this individual claimed that the system's not as bad as what people think it is. No, it is. Oh, trust me, it is. This year, I'm looking at I'm looking at the first rounders in the minor leagues playing at AAA. Adam Hazley, Alec Bowman, Mickey Moniak, Randolph. What are we doing here? While Ian Anderson is kicking your ass. While the Braves, you go through their lineup and what they do, who they pick up, doing damage. It's amazing. Thinking about the difference in drafting, set you back big time. So I trust Dave. The moral of the story is I trust Dave. I do. What he's selling me, I'm in. I think he understands. I think he gets it. He sees it. We got the stars. Now, how do we work the complementary pieces around? Now, I wonder if they have enough stars. Maybe one more. JT's, he's not really a star. He's a good player. Is Gene Segura a star because he's a 300 hitter and consistent? Not really. It's Bryce and Zach Wheeler. That's about it. So I guess it depends on how you label a star. Now, he made it clear because I love the fact, I don't know who the reporter was. He asked it might be someone I know. I'm just saying, I don't know who it was off the top of my head. But he said, we've seen complementary pieces in the past before. Matt Moore, Chase Anderson. That wasn't really successful. And he said, no, there's many layers to this. There's multiple different tiers of that style of player. And he's absolutely right. But does he label the Gene Seguras, the JT? Like, who's the stars on this team? Maybe you pick one up. I don't know. Because it seems they want to build around with multiple pieces. But you're right. If you're going to have a player making $20 million a year, would you rather have one? Or would you rather have maybe 2 or 3 pieces that can help out, be those complementary? It's just got to be the right ones. That's the problem. And like you said, there's tiers. Complimentary, what are we talking about? Brad Miller? What are we talking about? A banged up outfielder? And I'm not here to try and bash on Andrew McCutchen because I think for what he is at this point, he was pretty decent this year with the power, with the OPS. I mean, he's breaking down. There's no denying it, but you should know that at his age. That should be understood based off of the circumstances of who Andrew McCutchen is right now in his career. I guess you kind of take that type of effort. But that's not the complementary pieces we need. And look at shortstop. If it's not Stott, if it's not Didi, who's going to have to prove a ton that he could play the field and make simple, basic plays. If you screw up the basic ones, how do you think you're going to have a lot of success as a team in Major League Baseball? You're not. You're not. You'll be missing the playoffs for 10 straight years, which makes me want to throw up. The common theme of this episode, unfortunately. But I knew that was going to be the case when the identity of this show would be, let's talk about Dave Dombrowski's press conference and recap and share my final thoughts on the 2021 Phillies season. It's crazy. It really is. So they got to find the complementary pieces. They need a leadoff guy as well. And you know what name was mentioned? Odubel. And he kind of alluded to Odubel didn't have that bad of a season, and he's not wrong. There wasn't much outfield in combo today. It was left side of the infield, and it was the farm system, really, is what it came down to. So shortstop, third base, leadoff. Odubel came up, but it was almost like he said positive things about him. And I said the same thing. Odubel Herrera, every team is going to have an 8th or 7th hitter, a 9th hitter. Well, yes, obviously in the National League, the 9th hitter is most likely your pitcher, but you're going to have bottom half of the lineup guys. That's Odubel, but there's a difference when that's 7, 8, 9, or that's number 1. You didn't have horrendous play out of center field after what the debacle was to start the season, which was historically pathetic. But you had reasonable 7, 8 type of numbers. It just, I mean, if my center fielder could be better, that would be greatly appreciated. And there are some names out there that I think the Phillies are going to look at. They will explore all options. So you think about the big fish. You think about the bigger names. I think the Phillies will at least have the conversation. There will be dialogue about it. Do they go in that direction? It seems probably not. More unlikely than likely. But smart people inside baseball would sit down and say, okay, how do we surround MVP caliber Bryce Harper, hopefully a better version of JT Realmuto, Gene Segura, a 300 hitter, Rhys Hoskins, how do we do this? Now, maybe the answer is Nick Castellanos, which is a name that I would thoroughly enjoy. That's a name that I would be absolutely stoked to have. And look, I've been hard on Rhys, but I've respected him at the same time to acknowledge that bounce back that he had. That was major. That's no joke. That's not easy. There's not a lot of baseball players that can overcome the adversity he did in that 1 year, especially the bar was so high, the expectations were so high. It's been an emotional roller coaster with Rhys Hoskins, the individual, as a player for sure, and he meant a lot to this lineup. He meant a lot, and that's because there's not a lot to pick up when something fails like Rhys, or not fails, but falls, I should say, and he ends up getting injured. This roster wasn't built properly to fill that void, right? So imagine a Castellanos behind Bryce, which then can move Rhys. Now, like, let's say, it all stems from not having certain pieces. You're playing out of whack. I don't know who your leadoff guy is. Let's say it's Marte. Could you find a way to snag Marte? And Marte's your leadoff guy? Marte, Gene Segura, Bryce Harper, Nick Castellanos, Rhys Hoskins, JT Realmuto, and then you start getting later in it. And look, I don't want Odubel Herrera. Let me be very clear. I don't want anything to do with Kutch, and I don't want anything to do with Odubel Herrera. And with Odubel, his is more of, I wasn't disgusted with his on a full season in its entirety based off of his personal circumstances on how long he's been away from the game and things of that nature. Trust me, this organization tried every way in their power to look within and to find somebody else other than Odubel. It was by default because there were no other options that they were put in that situation, and he held his own considering, what the circumstances were. But it's just, first off, he makes boneheaded decisions. There are times where in the field he's not sharp. He doesn't run the bases. How about that steal attempt the other day to end the season? What in the world am I watching? Seriously, Odubel, come on, man. It just reeks of the old regime. It reeks of when you thought Odubel and Maikel Franco were going to be the next pieces to help take that leap. It's that old. We're out with the old. Let's get in with the new. The new is this Dave Dombrowski lifestyle. So really, it reeks of the older regime. It reeks of the poor era of Phillies baseball, which unfortunately for us has been a lot more times than the successful ones. We are now in this recent time of, and I say this in like 08 to, the run from 07 to 2011, just the playoff vibes all the time. I, at least, was spoiled. Maybe I should rephrase it. I was spoiled growing up, being in my teens those years. But that ain't normal. That's not what this franchise is all about. And it's frustrating. It is. But I trust Dave Dombrowski. That's what the message is today from me. Hearing him speak, it calmed me. The presence calmed me. And I know this could sound silly, but it's even little things throughout the press conference and the way it was broadcasted. Prior to it beginning, it was supposed to start at 2. And it did start at 2, but he was there at 1:58. And he's shooting the shit with the media members, talking about the game last night. I can't believe Garrett Cole. And look, we were talking as a baseball organization, as baseball as a whole, we were discussing, hey, with the wild card, if you get a Yankees Red Sox and you only get them for 1 game instead of a 3-gamer, think about the difference. Can you live with that? If we're discussing ratings, they're like, yeah, we could live with that. And he's just giving you casual convo, and it's 2:00 on the dot. All right, we ready? While Nick Sirianni, I'm not saying this has anything to do, the organizations are ran differently. One's in season, one's out of season. There's practice for the Eagles, but just on time. He's on time. He's ready to rock. He's actually early. He's hanging out being a baseball guy first, and then bang. All right, let me answer the question. Give me the questions. Let's just start this bad boy off. And he was ready for it. He was prepared because he knows the farm system needs a lot of help. Bryce Harper was pretty vocal about that as well. And I don't know if it's a hot take, but I have an interesting viewpoint, I think, on Bryce. I haven't heard it. It seems more rare than it does the norm. But I don't know. I'm a little annoyed with the way Bryce has handled the let me help manage the team situation, and not manage as in Joe Girardi, manage as in let's make decisions for this franchise. And I know when you sign a $330 million deal, yeah, there'll be discussions, and there'll be questions, and there'll be, sometimes Bryce Harper knocking on the door just to get a sense of what's happening. He's part of this long term, so I understand that. He has the superstar power to do so. But, he's talking about we don't need to be spending all this money on the big names. We got to build within and get that good blend. He's not wrong, but you're also the same person that begged this franchise to sign JT Realmuto, and I truly believe that is a part of the reason. Maybe not a large percentage, but it doesn't add to the helping section. It doesn't add to the helping department. I think signing JT and putting that money on the books has hurt more than it has helped, and you wanted that badly. They did it because, look, he's still a good baseball player. He underachieved to his standards, but yeah, they wanted to sign him because he's good, but also there's pressure when Sixto Sanchez is delivering for Miami, and when your superstar is wearing signed JT Realmuto shirts every day and showing up to the ballpark in tank tops that say Realmuto on the back and whatnot. You put pressure, and then now you're saying, well, we can't just spend all this money. We'd have more money to spend and maybe look in a different direction other than your catcher position to have that money to maneuver elsewhere, plus whatever else happens with maybe Andrew McCutchen and the options with Odubel Herrera and things of that nature, the buyouts and whatnot. So, that's all. It's like you kind of added to this by signing JT, but he doesn't look at it that way. They don't look at it that way, that JT in a negative. I do, because you don't spend that much money on your catcher position. I'd rather look throughout and find ways to split that up in other spots for sure. But that's just me. Hey, what do I know? Yeah, I'm looking through some other things that were touched on with Dombrowski. Joe Girardi, of course, was touched on. He'll be back. That's fine with me. This is what I don't understand. Gabe Kapler's clearly having success now, right? And now you're hearing the individuals that loved Gabe Kapler, and there were some out there. There actually were. Small percentage. They were not so loud at the time. They've been louder as this past season played out, and deservedly so. I guess you sat through all the harsh criticism and the nonsense when Gabe was here, and I've already said my public apology. I was a little more irrational on it at the time. I was a little bit younger, too, in understanding how it all played out, and yeah, I mean, I was harsh on Gabe Kapler, and I still don't think he would have had the success he's having in San Francisco here. At some point, once that's already kind of surrounding you, you might lose it, and it just kind of happened that way. But if you're saying, see, we told you that Gabe Kapler wasn't the problem, well, then why all of a sudden do you want to fire Joe for the same thing? I can make the same argument then. It's not Joe. It's not Joe. People are so baffled. I can't believe he did this. I can't believe he did that. If the roster was completed and it wasn't depleted because of Matt Klentak, you won't see these asinine moves. The asinine moves happen because you're looking for answers and you just don't have them. So instead of running your head through the damn wall, consistently throwing the same slop out there, you try and get creative and go into other modes. Also, though, there's an element here of this is a new generation of baseball. Dave Dombrowski seems to be an older school guy, so maybe there is more gut feel. Maybe that is why sometimes they're a little more head-scratching than you would say the normal is. But how much say does Joe have? People are like, I can't believe he's not pitching this player in game 162 against the Marlins in a game that doesn't matter. Who cares? Who cares? And who's to say that Joe even gets the card? Does he make the lineup card? The New York Yankees are having the same discussion today with Aaron Boone. Aaron Boone is nothing but a product of everybody in front of him, everybody upstairs in the front office. It's not Aaron Boone making any of these decisions. Now, Joe, I personally believe, has more say and a little bit more juice to him than Aaron Boone does. Aaron Boone is legit puppet. Joe seems to at least have a little bit more say involved, but I don't know how much he gets. At the same time, because the world is ran by analytics. The baseball world is ran by analytics. So if you liked Gabe Kapler and your tone after this is, see, I told you it wasn't Gabe, well then it's the same thing right now. The organizational failures are really the problem here. The roster is really the problem here. Were there some questionable moves? No doubt. No doubt about it. But how am I supposed to judge Joe based on this slop? Well, he didn't maximize. He didn't maximize who? Nick Maton, Travis Jankowski, Brad Miller, Luke Williams, Ronald Torreyes, Zach Wheeler, Bryce Harper. I mean, I don't know. What are we saying here? He didn't maximize guys who blow? All right. Well, then he doesn't have magic powers. Once again, I'm not telling you this guy is untouchable and he's the greatest manager to ever touch the field of baseball. But we've seen it. We've already went through a manager that had an issue. Why did he have the issue? Because of everything surrounding him. So it's just going to keep happening until those things are changed. Are you just going to keep screaming at whoever the manager is just because when we're already aware that there's other internal things that have to go down prior to putting all the pressure on the manager? This team's problem wasn't Joe. I promise you that. He falls way lower on the list than you think he does. All right, we're going to go to the Anytime Hotline, and a lot of text messages came in, so we'll do the text board right now. The Anytime Hotline is brought to you by Orbit Energy and Power. With over 20 years of industry experience, Orbit Energy and Power is home to your solar experts in both residential and commercial projects. At Orbit, they're dedicated to making sure your project is completed easily and properly by using high-quality materials and trained professionals to get the job done right. Make sure you check out their information at orbitenergy.us or call 800-836-3987. Now, this text message comes in from Chase in Harrisburg. Let me pull this up. He says, Brodes, this offseason for me is the first truly optimistic one I've had in a while. Over the last couple of seasons, we've had good amount of young players at least prove they are worthy to start. Brogdon and Suarez options in our rotation and the pen, assuming everybody's healthy. Yeah, Ranger Suarez maybe becoming a starting rotation guy. I at least think he earned an opportunity to get a chance early on. But the thing is, Zach Eflin's returning, so it would be returning from injury, I'm just saying. So you have Zach Wheeler, Aaron Nola, Zach Eflin, Kyle Gibson, Ranger Suarez. Is that what it is? Is that your starting five? I've been on the record already mentioning that I don't think that's the worst case in the world. I don't think it screams winning baseball either. And I guess where I'm at is I'm all in on Dave Dombrowski right now. I just know that it's not a one-year thing. And Howard Eskin was trying to be a douche about it and trying to give it like, oh, well, you guys are celebrating being a 2 games over 500. No, we're not, Howard. No, we're not at all. And there's a way that maybe we can rebuild while still staying competitive. And in the sport of baseball, yeah, it is possible knowing you draft and you have to develop in the time frame of that happening. You could still hang around like you were this season in theory and still give yourself a fighting opportunity. And yeah, Dave Dombrowski's not wrong. But yeah, I don't know. Is that a horrendous starting five? No, it's not. And in terms of Brogdon, yeah, he's an arm that you can still kind of build with as a bullpen arm, but you still have to get better there too in the closing department and kind of look at a way to refill that side of things. And also with the 2 strikes were a problem. Aaron Nola was a problem, but this team in general was a problem at times with 2 strikes. That's an approach as a whole entire, once again, organization. That's a common one today. And he continues here to talk about center field, solving the top of the order. It's the Phillies, so they'll find a way to screw it up. But hey, I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic too. I mean, look, you can't say they're going to screw it up just because they're the Phillies right now under Dave Dombrowski. I just feel you got to have faith. You got to have belief. This guy's been around the block. Yeah, you're right, though. I mean, the history will tell you, and if you've been a listener, you know I'm a big track record guy. I like to look back at, who they've been and what that tells you about their identity, and there's no doubt about it. They failed a billion times more than their success rate, for sure. So that is in there, and it's hard to fight against it. Dave, if you understand baseball and you hear Dave speak, he's got a sense of this. He's got a grasp of it. He knows what needs to be done, and that's major. That's the first step. Find that guy. And then it's the execution and the way you do it and tweaking certain areas. And I just hate to say this, it takes time. It's just going to be a journey. So it's not automatic. It's not next year, bang, they're just ready to rock again, Like, I'm trying to talk myself into how I should feel entering next year. And, of course, there's got to be moves that are made and the winter meetings go down. And we're not even close to that discussion. But the last few years, I've been fooled. I'm going to look at the Vegas odds because they just barely hit the over. It was 81.5 wins on the season. And at the time it released, everybody was whoa, taken back. That's a little low. Oh, they are really judging us. No. They were right on the money. It came out to 82. I would have won that bet, but it was not by a lot. It was by a hair. I'm going to look at that, and that'll tell me a lot. And it'll probably be a kind of another one like this-ish. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Dave does more than I'm anticipating. Clearly, shortstop, if they can find a this is a lot, though. A shortstop, a center fielder, one of those people being a leadoff guy, one of those people being a big bat, or there's another person added to the mix, that's a lot. That's a lot. Can they get it done in one offseason? I don't know. Maybe not perfectly meshing it all together, but taking a proper step maybe. And it just needs to be enjoyable. Let's look at it this way. And I'm not expecting, because I know the division's completely different, and this team is completely different. Dave Dombrowski stressed the molding of the youth with the ready-to-win now guys, the younger guys. And but when you look at Toronto, their team, their season this year was heartbreaking, but it was successful. It was in the right direction. It was taking the right steps. This team's not taking the right steps, even though they technically landed over 500. They missed out. And yeah, there's a big difference between winning 90-plus games and winning 82 games. Trust me, I'm not saying these organizations are even on the close path, but that's what I'm trying to say. If the Phillies actually lost and didn't make the postseason, but you end the year, it might come down to a heartbreak and a horrible heartbreak moment, but you're legitimately in it, right? Them losing to the Braves, it wasn't that heartbreaking. It made a lot of sense. They were going to fall to Atlanta. And them losing the way that they did against Miami at times, like, that makes sense. That's not truly heartbreaking the way the AL East broke up or broke out or shook out. So it's completely different. If they head in that direction, then yeah, that's a major step in the right spot. It's the major step for Dave Dombrowski. All right, this is from Mark in Cinnaminson. Brodes, how do you feel about Alec Bowman and them looking at him for third base again? It makes me nervous. I mean, I'm not telling you I'm the most optimistic person in the world that Alec Bowman snaps his fingers and becomes great, but I questioned Rhys Hoskins, and he sure did it, and maybe they share a lot of communication about it. Maybe they talk about it. Hey, this is what I did, and maybe Rhys Hoskins helps out a bit as well. And it's like, this is kind of the process I went through or whatever, and he did it. He'll never be a fantastic glove over a third. He just needs to be manageable. Make the basic plays. You might not make the stellar ones or the above average plays, which sometimes he does, though, and I think that's the frustrating part, is he'll make the wow ones, and he'll mess up the most basic ones, and it's really annoying when that happens. I don't know. Maybe that tells you there's more in there, and if he can knock that out and knock out the errors, then maybe he can be better and he can make those explosive ones. I'm not betting on that. I would not put a lot of money on that type of slip. He needs to be serviceable. I just wonder, though, if you're serviceable at third and first, but your power numbers are good, and he's actually using the entire diamond, can you live with that? The one error you make, who cares? I'm hitting a 3-run bomb. Who cares? I'm hitting a double in the gap. You got to get on base in front of Bryce. You got to put the pressure on the other teams. And you stack the lineup. I already told you the impact of what one person behind Rhys Hoskins can really do. So to get back to your question, or behind Bryce Harper, maybe in between Bryce and Rhys Hoskins, but just to kind of summarize on your question, on your question is, I mean, I don't love it, but understanding where they're at right now and fully analyzing the team, the fact that they're committing to it's not a Didi answer of, I don't know about Didi. It's, no, he's our third baseman, and we're working through it. We have this idea. We have this concept. He's going to Clearwater. He's working on both sides of his game. He's getting right after it. No winter baseball for him. They're approaching it the right way. It just comes down to, will it actually translate? And as I alluded to before, Rhys Hoskins did that, and it worked. Well, we went through this before. He switched things, and then he switched things again. But it's always a retweaking method. Golfers do it. Hitters do it. Bryce has done it. They've showed that a billion times with his front foot, depending on where it is, how it's on the dirt, depending the count, his stride. He's always tweaking. They're always all tweaking things to kind of find the right groove for you throughout those moments. But, yeah, that's kind of my recap of where we are. That's my feeling on kind of where the Phillies are, the state of the Phillies, if you will, as Dave Dombrowski just spoke. And it leaves me optimistic, but it's not a quick optimistic. It's more of like, it's just a couple-year thing, and I know that, but I guess I can trust where the franchise's hands are, or where the franchise is, whose hands they're in, and they're in somebody that just gets it. He gets it. He also knows that it takes a little bit of time, especially with where it was left off before he got here. So with that being said, I do want to tell you about my friends over at DraftKings. DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, has a Week 5 offer every football fan should jump on. New customers can bet just $1 on any NFL game and win $100 in free bets if either team scores a point. The last 0-0 tie in the NFL was in 1943, so I'd say this is a no-brainer. DraftKings customers also get skin in the game by utilizing their new same-game parlays. It's a no-brainer. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code BRODES. Bet just $1 on any NFL game and win $100 in free bets if either team scores a point. That's promo code BRODES this week at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Must be 21 or older, Pennsylvania only, new customers only. Restrictions apply. In partnership with Meadows Racetrack and Casino. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. I want to thank everybody so much for listening to this episode of Sports Talk with Brodes, and I will see you next time.